Hello, I'm here with Dr. Julie Ciancio, who is a fellow in India during 2007 through 2009, and she's here to answer a few questions to talk about her experience and give a little more insight to what she did during her program assignment. So for the first question, could you describe your primary and or secondary project?
Yeah, I did a lot of different things. I was at a management association in India, and my primary focus was doing teacher training programs in Western India. And the secondary focus was teaching at the management association. So I ended up teaching courses like pronunciation and business English and writing.
Okay. And how did that placement give you opportunities to share American culture, values, and customs with your students or the community?
Well, a lot, because I think that they have this idea that education in the U.S. is an ideal they want to aim for. And so I think through the teacher training, their idea is that we're kind of teaching them about how we do it in the States, and they want to emulate that and implement that into their classrooms. And then I think on a very personal level, just getting to know people, and which is what I think is really the beauty of the program. In a lot of places that I went, I did some work in some village areas where I did some teacher training programs. And I was the first Westerner they had ever been in person. And I always get the nicest feedback. They're so sweet, and they'd come up to me afterwards and they'd say, wow, you're nothing like we thought an American would be like. You're so down to earth and friendly and approachable. And so they were always really surprised by that. They expected Americans to be maybe a little bit reserved or cold or separate. And I think also because they're used to treating professors with so much respect, they don't really expect us to act like we're on the same level with them. So I think that in and of itself spread a lot about American values. And it wasn't intentional at all. It was just me being me and them being surprised by their preconceived notions of what an American is like.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you can kind of see what your experience is and kind of figure out why it got to be like that, and like how your take of the situation is done, and then how you can relate it to the culture that and how their culture works and how it's different and perceived expectations.
I think that's the really neat part about it too, because it's really truly supposed to be an exchange. And so not only are we supposed to go there and provide information and training, but it's also supposed to affect us, and we're supposed to bring that back to our colleagues and our institution and share those perceptions with them. So it is a true exchange. So that's the thing I love about traveling.
Definitely. What did you experience or learn about your host country that you brought back to the U.S.?
Well, I actually got really pampered. I was very spoiled. They took such good care of me. I was in a wonderful host institution. They were really organized and efficient, and they were just so polite and kind and friendly and really took such good care of me. I didn't have to do anything like make photocopies, and they brought me all kinds of office supplies, and they really took good care of me. So I guess one thing that I really learned was about their hospitality, because they're so kind and friendly, and they always bring you tea and cookies and water, and they just really, really pampered me. And then when I got back to the university in the U.S., I was so embarrassed because when we would have a foreign dignitary come to visit, we didn't even have tea and coffee to offer them. We'd bring them like a styrofoam cup of water. It was so embarrassing. So I think that like how to treat people was something that I learned in those formal academic settings there.
Yeah, that's something that we kind of take for granted in when we're in our own context, that we think, oh, this is normal, and then we go over and we see how something's done, and we can take those pieces and really transition and use them in our original context and be able to even like teach, and that's in a way sharing from that exchange that we had, so it carries on and pays forward.
Yes, exactly, because you never question it if you don't go out of your context. You never assume that there's another way of eating or another way of doing the most simple things in life. You just don't stop to question those.
Right. Was there anything that really surprised you about living in India?
India was a challenge. I was there in 2007, from 2007 to 2009, and I've gone back a lot since then, and it's really changed a lot in the last 10 years. In in some ways, I think it's sad because I see a lot more people wearing more Western clothing, and so and I see it changing in ways that I think is kind of sad. But in other ways, it's gotten a little bit cleaner on the streets and things like that. They have a real strong initiative right now called Clean India, and so you see some positive changes too. But I had been living in Brazil for 13 years before I moved to India, so it was kind of like the polar opposite in terms of going from a very liberal society to a very conservative society. So that was a little bit difficult for us to adapt to, because I really felt very Brazilian, and I was used to walking around in shorts and halter top and things like that, and that wasn't acceptable in India at all. So, I mean, it wasn't hard, but it was a little bit of a constraint, I think.
Right.
But you have to adapt to the culture, and you have to, I think, be flexible, and you want to be appropriate for the culture too. So it was easy to adapt to. It was just kind of challenging at the beginning.
Right. Okay. What would you say the best part of being a fellow was?
Wow, I had so much professional growth. It was really huge. I learned so many things. It was amazing. It really suited me because I'm very independent, and I'm a very good independent worker. So, I mean, literally, they take you and drop you in some remote. Just have to figure it out and do the best you can do. And they'll give you a project, and that's what you're supposed to be doing, but it doesn't always work out that way. Like sometimes they've sent in a proposal, and they don't have the manpower, or things have changed, or there's been a change in administration, or the materials didn't arrive. So you have to just really roll with it and be ready to be flexible and change and adapt. But so it worked out well for my personality, as I like being independent and being able to take charge. And but I did so much teacher training. I really learn more than the teachers, I'm sure. Every time I teach something, I feel like I learn a ton. And I did a lot of curriculum development, and I really didn't have much experience with that before. I had a little bit, but not a lot, and I got a lot of experience. So a lot of experience with teacher development, giving presentations at conferences, just traveling around and meeting different people in different contexts. I learned from that too, because I was teaching all the way from very prestigious institutes down to very small rural village schools that had no supplies whatsoever. So I learned a lot. I developed so many materials for business English, for pronunciation. So I was able to maybe further develop some expertise that I already had, and develop some new capabilities that I really hadn't developed before I went.
Wow, that sounds like a really great opportunity to just learn and grow from being put into these opportunities where we might not have that the opportunity if not for this type of program. It sounds like that experience gave you a lot of good opportunities. And how did those opportunities and those challenges and experiences impact your post fellowship career?
Huge, really. Before I went on the fellowship, I was a teacher, and I was a teacher trainer in a like a certificate program for people to become ESL teachers. And I was a director of a language department, a small language department at a university. And this was all in Brazil. And then after my fellowship, I got a position in California as a TESOL program administrator in a university in California. So it was really a pretty big jump in my career, actually, because of all the international experience as well as the specific experience working with TESOL internationally. You know, it gave me a lot of credibility and a lot of expertise.
Right, and the confidence that came with knowing I can do this, or I can do whatever is put in front of me now, and um, you've proven yourself in a sense.
And another unforeseen benefit was that then I got into international student recruitment as well, because I was seen as being somebody who was very international. So I had had so much experience in Brazil as a teacher, and then, you know, with the fellowship in India. So it kind of took my career off actually in another direction that I hadn't really anticipated. They just like assumed that I would be the India expert on campus. So I was part of the India Initiative Committee and things like that.
Nice. Um, and then one last question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone thinking about becoming a fellow?
Do it. Absolutely. It's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful organization. I think that not only for the fellow, but for the people that you touch and the changes that you're able to make and to inspire people and help and, you know, be a part of such a fabulous community. It's an awesome experience. I truly recommend it.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time to share your experience with us. And I hope that you've inspired someone to go open the application.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.